everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and violin tutor.
If the violin is shaking when you're trying to do vibrato, that is the number one sign that you are attempting vibrato too soon.
Number one, the first thing you're going to need is a violin. I have been playing the violin since I was 4 years old. I went to university and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in music.
With the amazing talent that's Alison Sparrow. Alison, come out here.
So bear with me if there are any technical hitches, I'm sure it'll be fine. For about 5 years I was an examiner for the London College of Music. And over the years I've seen basically the music world from every kind of possible view really, and because of that it has enabled me to write my own violin course. Hello everyone, welcome. So there we go, that's kind of all you really need to know. And don't forget guys, anyone can learn to play the violin. Hello everyone and welcome back to another live at Friday. Thank you all for joining me. This week's video is going to be the second half or a continuation of the live Q&A that we kind of did a little bit last week. So I have a few questions that I've written down here that I have collected from a few of you from last week's video that I didn't get round to, and over the course of the week as well. So just to put it out there to start with, I'm really sorry if I haven't got round to answering your question in today's video. There are quite a lot of questions coming through. Some of them I just can't answer because they're just a bit too specific to either a certain technique or a certain person. So for example, I would need to see you in real life standing here right next to me in order for me to kind of work through the problem. So some of the questions are a little bit too specific for me to answer broadly or generally vocally via a live video, and some of the questions are a little bit too unique to that person. So I want the answers to the questions to benefit everybody as well, so the same kind of questions that everybody has. So suffice to say, I would just get through as many as I can. I will answer as many as I can. So if you have any questions, just keep them rolling in, and you know, I'll just get around to them. So I have a few questions that I have collected over the week, as I said, and I've got them in front of me. So I will be referring to them here if you're wondering what I'm looking at. And also I will be having a look in the chat box as well once I've gone through these. So Chris Holland, this is from last week's video. Chris asks, what's your favourite warm-up exercise? I don't really have a warm-up exercise at all, but as you know, the scales are just going to be the best thing to warm up with. So scales are something that you should be working on anywhere. Scales and arpeggios, they're all your kind of technical exercises. Scales are in my, Scales are in my violin course book 2. So I know a lot of you are on my 1 to 30 violin course. If you're not, there are details underneath this, but it's just 30 lessons, guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to a very decent accomplished intermediate player. And in book 2, where are they? They're right near the start. I think they're lesson 11. I go through scales and arpeggios, and the scales that we go through are the ones that are appropriate for the level that you're going to be at the time. There are some more scales in book 3 as well, so there's scales all over the show. So warm-up exercises, I don't really have warm-up exercises as such. It's not as if I kind of, I don't know, just sit there and just play random things. The best things to just warm up with are going to be scales, because scales, they are going to warm up the fingers anyway. So, you know, what when you think of a warm-up exercise, what would you kind of think anyway? So scales are very good for warming up anyhow, warming up the fingers especially, but also they're good for intonation, loads of other things as well. And going back to all the key signature thing that we've been speaking about the last 2 weeks or so, if you know your scale of D, then you know your key of D, because the scales and keys are exactly the same thing. So if you know the scale of D major, the key of D is exactly the same. So that's kind of, they're good for that sort of thing anyway. Okay, Sue asked from last week, can you talk more on note values? So you weren't any more specific than that. So I don't know whether you had anything more specific in mind, Sue, but with note values, again, they're talked about in book, where we are, there we go, violin book 2, and note values are on page 10 in book 2. So note values are all explained here. Now, probably the best thing is this table that you've got there. And these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are the 5 main notes that you will come across. You do have these ones as well, which are what we call semiquavers in the UK or 16th notes in the US, and they look like these ones here. That's just if there is a single one, so it's got two tails or 2 little flags, if you want to call it. When they're put together, they're joined with a bar, and if the note is at the bottom of the lines, the tail goes up, and if the note is at the top of the lines, the tail goes down. So that's what they look like there. And then you've got this little tree going on here that shows you all the timing. So note values, there isn't really much to say with note values. Note values are a very rudimentary theory. So note values are something that you would learn quite early on in your learning. Obviously, because you have to, because you can't play any notes, or you can't play any music if you don't know how long to hold the notes for. But all I can say really is that you just need to learn what the notes look like, and you need to learn how many beats they're worth. I wouldn't even say it matters if you know what the name of the note is. It helps if you know what the name of It helps if you know what the note names are. So it depends if you want to learn them by the US or the UK version. But you just need to know that when you play that one, that's worth half a beat. When you play this one, it's worth 1 beat. When you're playing this one, it's worth 2 beats. So that's it really. You've just got to suck it up and learn it. When you get to page 12 in this book, that's when I start talking about bar lines. So that's why I've done note values and bar lines all at the same time. So if you have this book, get hold of this book, and everything it's going to tell you everything that you need to know in here. But if we've got the time signature here, which is covered in that's covered on page 9 as well. Everything's covered in lesson 12 of book 2. Once you've got the time signature here, your 4 at the top tells you how many beats there are in a bar. So we know that this is worth 1 beat. We know that this is worth 2 beats. And we know that this is worth 1 beat. And then we have a bar line. So 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. Then we have a bar line, 2 beats and 2 beats. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So really that's kind of it really with the note value. So let me know, Sue, if you had any more expansion on that, or you had any more questions. But that's kind of all I can think of that you might have wanted to know with the note values. I've just seen a question pop up here in the chat. LGM Cat says, how do we know if we play a song well enough to move on to other songs? So I was going to answer that question actually, because a few other people have asked that as well. So if you are playing any of the songs out of my 1 to 30 violin course, or just, any song in general, or you are learning a course and you are learning pieces of music, whatever, how do you know when to move on to the next one? Well, that's quite difficult. The easiest way to know is to have a teacher tell you, or have someone tell you, okay, you've done enough for the level that you're at. I think that sounds as good as you can be for the level you are at. Now let's add something to it, or now let's move on. So that's the ideal way of doing it. But of course, you guys don't have that. So you have to do that. But I think the question is that you don't want to move on when you don't think it sounds good enough. So you get a little bit of panic sets in, because you think, oh, well, if I'm moving on, maybe I'm not doing what I need to do on this piece, and then I'm moving on, and then I'm not learning what I need to learn, and then I can't move on, and then I'm undoing everything, and that kind of plays around in your mind. So have the confidence to move on if you feel you need to move on. The whole point is that the only way to really know this is to pay a teacher, or to pay someone to tell you. But you don't want to do that, because you want to do it yourself and you want to have these lessons on your own, and that's absolutely fine. And you know what? The worst thing that can possibly happen is that you move on too soon and you'll struggle. You won't be able to do it. So then that will be your indication to think, right, I've got to go back. I've got to go back over a few pieces. I've maybe got to try and perfect those a bit more. Perhaps it was too soon to move on. And then go back and do it. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. Nothing, nobody's going to die. The violin's not going to break. Nothing like that. Nothing drastic is going to happen. All you'll find is that you just won't be very good, or you'll really, really struggle to move on. You will just find everything very difficult. Everything will be very time consuming. You'll just, things will just be really, really hard. And then when you do start playing, you'll find that you're just really, really rubbish. And you'll be really rubbish because you're just not quite ready to move on. So then go back. So when you feel that you're all out, you're fresh out of ideas, you've got nothing more to say about the piece of music, you've recorded yourself, you've got to record yourself, because it's the only way that you can teach yourself. And I say this all the time. So either video yourself or just set the recorder, audio to record yourself, and then listen back to it and genuinely just imagine, detach yourself from it, and then imagine that it's someone else playing it. And then you can really kind of sit there and sort of think that, do I sound good or do I not sound good? Something from Kathy's just popped up. That's exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes I play a song well and I'll play it again and it sounds bad. Well, you want to get to the point where you're playing it 9 times out of 10 and it sounds pretty decent. You're always going to have a one bad play. I don't play pieces of music exactly the same every time. Sometimes I'll play a piece of music and it'll be amazing. I'll play it again and it'll be amazing again. And then I'll play it again and it'll be like my brain and my fingers just don't even know what's happening. So, move on when you feel you've got nothing more to bring, but you've got to record yourself and you've got to be genuine with that. And you really do have to listen and make sure that you are not cheating yourself, because you're only cheating yourself, aren't they? So, I mean, that's all I can say really on that one. Kathy also asks again from last week, the best strings to use. Okay, so the best type of strings that I think are good to use, there are lots of different strings, and it really does depend on the violin you've got, and it depends on your budget. I can show you the strings that I use. So these here, these are the strings that I use. So this one here, this is what I use on my E string. So this is a gold, they're all Parastro strings, by the way. These are all by the brand Parastro. So this one here is a gold label E string. This one here is an obbligato. Excuse me, I'll get hiccups. And I use the obbligato one for the D and the A string. And this one is for the G string. This is a Passione. And I use, for my G string, I use a extra high tension for Passione. So the strings come in different tensions as well. And I've done a whole video on strings. I think I did it in 2 parts. So I will link those. I'll link the string videos underneath this, because there's a lot of information. There's too much information for me to sit here and give you that. But I can give you the footnotes or the cliff notes if you like. So these are the strings that I use, and this G string here I use as an extra high tension, because quite often I will do a lot of playing quite high up on the G string, or as I did get another comment, which I can't remember, I can't remember who said it. I think it was someone that does come in these lives quite regularly, but I'm pretty sure one of you said that you have a lot of trouble playing on the G string or getting a really good sound on the G string. So if you've got a really good string that's really responsive and really helping you out, then it's going to be less of a problem. So I like to have an extra high tension for the Passione, but my advice is just don't look at the price because you'll just die from the price of the Passione. Their Parastro strings they're probably arguably the best strings that you can get. They're very, very good for antique violins. So they're very good if you have a higher end violin. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't waste money buying a Parastro string if you've got a student quality violin. If you've got a student quality violin, I would recommend something like a Parastro Tonica. So I've just contradicted myself there. So Parastro do a brand called Tonica, and they are very good. I believe, I want to say off the top of my head, they're very, I think they might be steel strings. I could be wrong on that one. I haven't looked at them in a long time, so don't quote me on that one. But Parastro Tonicas are very good for student quality violins. If you just want to give them a little something else, they're very full in sound, they're very bright, but they're also very warm at the same time. So these strings, actually I'm going to show you here. These strings are mostly synthetic, and I like synthetic strings. You can get gut strings as well. I like gut strings on my violin. Gut strings are very, very warm, but they're not ideal in very extreme weather. So if it's very, very hot or it's very, very cold, they like to go out of tune. So if you're playing in a church, something like that, where the churches are just extremely cold most of the time in the winter, they're not that great. So there's different types. So if you have a higher end violin, then maybe you could try something like this. The other one, which I haven't put here, are the olive strings. Again, I think the olive strings are gut strings, so they're very, very good. But these are very expensive, but you have to experiment. You have to experiment with them. So this combination is great for my violin. So this is my E string. This one here is my G string in extra high tension. And this one here is what I use for the D and the A string. And this one and this one are just medium tension. So if you're not sure, just buy medium tension. I'd recommend medium tension, except if you want to go for it a little bit more and you're doing a little bit more work on the G, try this one for the, try a high or even an extra high tension. Okay, what else have we got? Someone's asked something about bow distribution, so let me take that off. So this question comes up quite a lot about bow distribution. How do you know how much to bow? So there is no right or wrong with this. It depends on how long you are holding the notes for. So generally, if we're doing really fast notes, let me turn my microphone down a bit. So generally when we're doing really fast notes, you know, that kind of thing, then we're going to be using kind of that much bow. We don't want to be doing, you know, no one's going to do anything like that. So if you want to distribute your bow for the amount of time you're playing a note. So if you are playing a 2-beat note, 1, 2, you want to try and get most of that bow in for those 2 beats. If you want to have more of the bow for those 2 beats, then you just slow the bow down. But as for bow distribution, there is no right or wrong answer. You just have to. I find it's something that isn't really taught. I've never really had to sit a student down in the lesson and give them a whole lesson on bow distribution. It doesn't really work that way. Bow distribution is something that you will get better with in time as you learn how much you can get out of the bow. What you can do as an exercise is to try and, let me just turn you down, so I'm not really, really loud. So you want to try and hold, turn you up again. So you want to try and hold your bow as long as you can without kind of the sound degrading too much. So that's a very good way of just helping you with the consistency of the bow, because it's all linked as well. But in terms of how long you need, if you're playing a 2-beat note, then depending on how fast that 2 beats is going to depend on how much you're going to be pulling the bow up and down. So there is no right or wrong. I can't say that if you're playing a note that's 4 beats long, that you've got to start here and you've got to end there. It doesn't matter, because, and it doesn't work that way, because if a note is 4 beats long and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only used a fraction of that. I've only used that. But if it's a slow 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'm going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to be using that much more bow proportionally. So have a play around with it. But in terms of bow distribution, it will be something that you will just get better with just as time goes by. Okay. Let's have a look, see if we've got any questions up here. You're welcome, Kathy. I hope that's answered your question. Right. Oh, I've got a lot of questions coming in. Right, bear with. Okay. Kersey says, where do I set the metronome for the correct tempo when the sheet music says 4/4? Ignore what the time signature is. It doesn't matter what the time signature is. The time signature could be 400 by 100. It really doesn't matter. Don't get bogged down with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Or don't get bogged down with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, because everything is still going to be beating this way. Let me show you. Hold on a second. Okay, so I've got one of these metronomes kicking about. Hold on a second. Okay, so I think we can all hear that. So what is this beating in? Is it beating 3? Is it beating in 4? Is it beating in 5? Is it beating in 7? Is it beating in 6, 8, 12, 8, 9, 8? Who knows? It doesn't matter. Let's say it's, let's just say the time signature is 4 beats in a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. Now let's say there's 7 beats in a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. So it doesn't matter. If you've got a key signature, if you've got a time signature, did I say key signature? I meant to say time signature. If your time signature is 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 9, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to give you a bit of a roll, isn't it? And 12, 8 is exactly the same there. When you're beating in, when you're counting in 6, 8, it is still going to be counting almost in 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are on 2? What are on 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. If we're beating in 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2. But hear my clicks. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's still a click for every 3 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3. I can't count that fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So why should it matter what you set the metronome to depending on the time signature? It doesn't actually matter. What does matter is the speed that you set it to. And the speed you set it to, I don't know. It really, really depends on the piece of music. So start it really slowly. Usually pieces of music will say, 72 beats per minute, in which case you'll go to there and you'll go, oh yeah, let's just set that to 72. So now we've just set it to 72. If it says, the music says 72, let's stick it on 72. There we go. Sometimes the music might say 120 beats per minute. All right, let's pop it all the way up to 120. So the red dot is now there for 120. So that's all we're going to do. Sometimes the music will give us Italian terms like presto, that kind of thing. And sometimes you do have, this one actually does. Can you see you've got some Italian terms here? There's presto, largo's over there, and Dante, moderato and things like that. So what it is saying that presto is somewhere in that time. So what is presto? Presto, they're saying, is roughly 168 beats to about 200, to sort of give you an idea. And then largo, if you were playing a piece of music that says largo, that would be 40 beats per minute right up to 60 beats per minute roughly. So largo would be anywhere in this section here. So the speed of which you are playing things is going to be determined by you and how fast you want to play them. And a lot of people ask people how fast they should be setting their pieces to, should be setting their metronomes to some of the pieces that I have in my book. And I would just say that just try and match the metronome with the speed that I'm playing it in the demo. And then you can go from there. But in my course, I don't really set speeds because I don't want people getting too bogged down with sort of saying that if I've got to play a piece of music and Alison set it to 120 and I can't, and then you're 6 months trying to force yourself in to get it to 120 because you don't want to let yourself move on until you've got it to 120. I don't want people getting themselves in that kind of situation because you just end up getting your knickers in a twist. And then you end up just kind of going backwards and it gets frustrating and you're not moving forward enough. So that's it, really. Don't worry about what the time signature is. Just worry about the speed that you want to play to and you want to set it at. But every time signature will fit into a clicky beat, however fast it's going to be played, and that is it. So I hope that has answered that one. Rebecca, oh, thank you. Rebecca's just said, I like your makeup. Thank you. Right. My Adam, my G string at the fingerboard has gone a dark rust-like color. Does that mean I need to change it, or how long have you had that string on? Possibly. However, let me go into my trusty drawer again. It's good job I got this drawer right behind me. If that is the case, because it depends on what string you've got, and I know strings can be quite expensive and they're quite traumatizing to change them. I'll admit I don't enjoy changing my strings because it is a bit of a chore. I change my strings all in one go unless one breaks. I had a breakage only about 2 months ago. Actually, it was very when we were going through that heat wave in August, I think it was. And the little I'm in a garden cabin here. And it gets very hot, and of course I can't have any air conditioning on or any windows open because I get all the the traffic and the noise and all that kind of thing. So one of my strings broke right at the end of one of my live videos, actually, because it was so hot. So unless something like that happens, I will change one individual string, but I will change them all four because I'm using all four at the same time. There's no reason not to. However, if you want to just squeeze a bit extra, you can get some string cleaner. This is Parastro string cleaner. I'm sure you can probably get something like this. Says it contains alcohol, so don't get this near the wood or anything else. Just purely on the strings. Try and avoid getting it on the fingerboard as well. I don't actually know what is in here. I can't actually. Last time I looked, I couldn't find what was in here. So I'm sure it's going to be something. It will probably be. I don't want to put ideas in people's heads and then they start ruining their strings, but it might be something like isopropyl alcohol and maybe something else that's in there as well. But this is Parastro string cleaner. I don't think this was very much, but don't forget I'm playing with these strings here. So these are a very expensive set of strings. These are, I mean, these are well over £100. I think the Passioni, last time I looked, I buy them when I need to buy them. I mean, the Passioni is coming on for about £100, and then the E string's never very expensive, but I need two of these and they're about 20-30 odd quid. So I'm probably not looking far off of, change out of a £200 note. In dollars, you're looking at $200. So if you're buying these kinds of strings, you don't want to be ruining them with isopropyl alcohol, because I know that these strings, they will have a coating on them, and the coating does wear off over time. So if you're going in there with anything isopropyl alcohol or I don't know whatever else, spirits and things that people are thinking they can clean metal and rust with, don't do it. I just don't do it, because what you'll do is you'll just end up stripping everything off the metal. It's like when it's like when you have rings and you have white gold ring, but it's yellow gold underneath, and then eventually the white gold just wears, and then you've got to get them replated again. So what you don't want to be doing is just wearing that off, and then you've just worn through the strings. So just get some string cleaner like this, but try that. It might be worth trying, but you can always use this anyway, because it's a really good idea that you can use just to wipe off the dirt, the grease, the grime and everything from your grubby fingers as they're sweating away playing and everything. So see if that works. If that's doing nothing, I would just change it, because it's not going to be any good for the tone and any good for your fingers anyway. So see if that revives it or not. Just get rid of that over here. What else have we got in the questions? Ron. Hi Alison, I'm following your course for 3 years now and I have a question about the sound. I still have the beginner sound. Doesn't matter what I do. The main reason beginners sound like beginners is, well, a culmination of things. Intonation is really a big giveaway. So it's a few things that I would look at. So this is where it kind of just gets a little bit, can be a little bit complicated. So one of the main things that give a beginner away to a professional player is going to be the intonation. So if you are playing, I don't know, so, I mean, it sounds pretty rubbish, doesn't it? So when I try and replicate playing the beginner. These are the things I think in my mind that I have to do to emulate what you guys are doing and then reverse engineering that. So why does that not sound great? The first thing, or the first main reason it doesn't sound great, is because my intonation is just terrible. So let me just get the intonation correct first. So there's the intonation, so already that sounds 10 times better. The next thing would be the bow. So what you want to do is try and make sure that your bow is bowing where it should do. So when I was playing with the terrible intonation, if you notice, what I was doing as well was this. So I was bowing all over the place. So when I'm bowing all over the place, that just sounds pretty rubbish, doesn't it? But if I bow in the middle here, which is exactly where I should be bowing, let me turn my microphone down in case that's really loud. If I'm bowing here, a perfect clean sound all the time, because this is exactly where I should be bowing. So, oh, bow's the wrong way. So we're not bowing too close to the bridge. Some people say in the middle. I like just off the middle, just a little bit towards the fingerboard, not all the way to the fingerboard. But if we say the middle is here, hang on, let me just get my bow levels because the camera's the other way around. Then I want to be just slightly over the middle line. I find that's the nicest place to bow, the most comfortable, and the place where your hand and your arm just falls really naturally. But if I'm bowing like this, and that's because I'm letting my arm do all of this, then you're immediately going to lose the sound. So let's play a version with correct intonation but wrong bowing. Let's see if I can do that. So that's very exaggerated. I'm not suggesting anybody plays like that. That's very exaggerated. It's actually quite difficult to do. But you're losing the quality of the sound, and that makes the whole thing sound really bad. So even though my fingers might be in tune, it makes them sound like they're not in tune. So making sure your fingers are perfectly in tune is the number one dead giveaway. The second giveaway is going to be the quality of the sound. Now the third part of that is the bow. So when I bow to simulate a beginner, the one thing I do is, so I'm playing individual bows, but what you want to do is try and make those bows softer. So that becomes with all this bowing that we've got here. Let me just bring myself up a little bit higher so you can see my wrist. So this is all going to be in the wrist. So what we don't want is just, we don't want to be stopping the bow at the end. I've got plenty of videos on these, so I'll link them underneath, how to bow smoothly. Go and watch those videos because they're going to give you, a whole video on specifically how to do this. But it's all to do with the wrists, and I keep going on about this all the time. But instead of just bowing, we don't want to do that. We want to keep a nice smooth sound. So however you do that, try and keep that in mind that when you're bowing down, we don't want any gap when we're going upwards. So try and keep it nice and smooth. And I'm not even moving my wrist for this, so I'm showing you that it is possible to do it without even making the wrist flow. You just have to try and make that bow a little bit smoother rather than intentionally. That's what we don't want, because it's just going to sound really disjunct and really choppy. But if we smooth it out a little bit, make it a little bit more softer, be more aware of that, then that's going to change the tone tenfold. So let's put that all together. So that's a much better. And what that sounded like originally was, oh, sorry. So that makes a whole load of difference. Also as well, when you are not bowing correctly, you're going to get a lot of bow bounce in there because the bow isn't really going where it's supposed to go. The third and final thing you can do, and Ron, if you say you've been playing for 3 years and you might be ready for this, is to pop a little vibrato in. If you haven't already started on vibrato, then why not start on vibrato? So vibrato is the cherry on the cake for everything. So the vibrato, adding vibrato to any playing is going to make your playing instantly move from beginner intermediate to the professional arena. However, you do need to make sure that you've got your basics down first. So you need to make sure that your intonation is very good. You need to make sure that your bowing isn't a problem anymore. You need to make sure that all of those things are no longer an issue before you add vibrato into the mix, because you're going to be focusing all of your concentration on doing that vibrato, and everything else is going to be going out the window. So the more everything else becomes, or the more everything else is second nature to you already, when you're focusing on that vibrato, you've got the basics kind of locked up tight in that bag. So now let's play it with a bit of vibrato. So that makes a whole difference. And those are the kind of just simple things that are going to take your playing from beginner sounding to a little bit more professional, or certainly intermediate player, like an intermediate player. So make sure your intonation is perfect first. Make sure you are bowing in the right place on the string consistently. What else did we say? Make sure that you are bowing smoothly. So we don't want any we don't want any separated notes. We want the bowing to be nice and smooth, so that we can't really tell whether you're playing an up bow or a down bow, or whether you've changed from a down to an up bow. So try and make the bowing nice and smooth and consistent. And then the fourth thing that you can do, if that's an option for you, is to add in vibrato, and then that is really what will take your playing really to the next level and make you sound a lot more professional. So I hope that helps, though. I know it's a bit of a whistle stop tour of that one, but those are the main kind of attributes that I would associate with a beginner sounding player. Even if you're not a beginner, you can still sound like a beginner, but I know exactly what you mean. I think I have time for one more question. Katie says Parastro Obligato is so expensive. Yeah, it is really expensive, but it is a beautiful sound. And I'll tell you what, the money that you're paying for those strings, they're not going to break. They're going to perform for you every single time. And even when they're kind of dead and a bit dull, they'll still be working for you. So they will last a long time for you. So they're worth the money in that way. Okay, I've got one more to answer, and any that I haven't answered, I will note them down and then I'll move them into next week's video. So maybe I'll do another live Q&A if everybody's loving all this. So Vinci says, do you have any advice for technique getting a clearer tone when playing on the higher positions? I have to constantly pull the bow over the string because I get a rough broken sound. Right, so when you're playing on the higher positions, then a couple of things that you can do. First of all, when you're playing in the higher position, so let's say you're playing in third position, fourth position, or whatever, anything higher than third position, it gets a little bit harder. It's very hard to do on the E string, and it's even harder to do on the G string, simply because your hand has to come all the way round. Now, in order to get a nice tone or a nice sound, that's going to be coming mainly from the bow. So the bow is what creates the sound. So at the moment, my violin is not creating a sound. It's just sitting here, and it's just decorative. It's not doing anything. As soon as I do this, as soon as I put the bow on the strings, it makes a sound. So the sound, if anything doesn't sound right with the sound, it's usually going to be a problem with the bow. However, when you're in third position and upwards, it's what you're doing with the fingers as well. So you need to make sure that your intonation is obviously correct as well, but you need to make sure that your fingers are fully depressed on the string. Now, when you're playing in third position and upwards, and especially if you're playing up in the rafters here, I find that I have to work very, very hard. My fingers, you can't play very high up for a very long period of time because it does get quite fatiguing. It gets fatiguing in terms of here, because you can see that my hand has my hand has nowhere else to go. So I'm literally having to kind of yank my thumb up, and my fingers are here, and then I can't get them round enough because it just my fingers look very awkward. So it is quite awkward, but I am making sure that my fingers are pressing quite hard on the string actually, and I'm making sure that they are depressed in the middle. So I want to get a good hang on, let me just do that again. Hold on a second. I can get an impression on my finger and then show you really quickly. So can you see I've got a depression right in the middle of the pad of my finger? And if you can sort of see that there. So you want to make sure that you are right in that middle there. So you're going to get a good quality sound out of the string. And you have to do that with all the fingers. So you do have to work very hard. When you're on the G string, it's even harder because your fingers have to come up and over. And that's a part of the reason why I have an extra high tension on the G string, just to help me a little bit with that. Doesn't work the same with the E string for anyone that might be asking that question, but it just helps me a little bit because it is very difficult to play on the G. So not only am I having to, really make sure that my finger is over that note, it's correct, but I really have to make sure that my bow is giving it enough as well. So what you want to make sure is that you are maybe playing with a slightly flatter bow. So especially when you're on the G, make sure that your bow is a little bit flatter and that you are maybe slightly closer to the bridge. You don't want to be down near the fingerboard because it's just far too weak. So when you're playing in the higher positions, i.e. anything I guess higher than the actual body of the violin, so here and downwards, it's a combination of making sure your fingers are very, very firmly depressed on the string. It's not wishy-washy like it can be up here where you can get away with it, but you've really got to make sure that you press hard so you get those indentations on your fingers, and you want to make sure they're right in the middle of your finger and not sort of halfway on the fingernail or anything like that. But also your bow, you're probably going to have to dig in just a little bit more with your bow. And when I say dig, I don't mean like that. I just mean put a little bit more weight of the arm up here, just a little bit more weight on the bow to get a more quality sound, and maybe playing a little bit less tilted. So it's nice to play tilted, but when we want a nice, thicker, fuller, more quality sound, we have to play a little bit more with a flat bow, so we have more quality bow and more bow for a bigger, better, fuller sound, but also maybe a touch closer to the bridge, not too much closer to the bridge because it'll be scratchy in another way, but just a little bit closer to the bridge. So I hope that helps you. Other than that, you just have to get your arm stuck in there. But it is hard playing in the upper position, so don't beat yourself up about that. It is hard, and there is a certain technique with it, but if you go back and address those techniques, you'll probably find that will help you quite a bit. Okay, so I'm going to end this Q&A here. I'm really, really sorry if I haven't had a chance to answer your question. I'm desperately trying to answer as many as I can, and ones that are easy for me to answer via video for you all. Anybody that I haven't, I will make a note of the questions that you've left in the chat, and I will write them down, and I'll add them to this. And maybe next week we can do another Q&A if everybody would like another Q&A. But it's just a good way, I think, of answering all those kind of questions that you have, but you can't just type them into Google because it doesn't work that way. And you don't have access to a teacher. So I can just answer them live for you. So thank you very much for watching. We've managed to get through a whole video without any incidences, without the stream freezing or anything like that. So I hope the sound and the quality has been fine. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in next week's live video. Bye.